What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Tequila Tuesday, brought to you by Sendoso, Scotty's Little Sales Club. I've already had tequila. Official sending partner. So we want to thank them for helping put this show and all of the Tequila Tuesday events on. Thank you all for being here. I see my good friend, massive shout out on National Margarita Day, Cynthia Silva, already with her margarita, and our host, Alli Rizacos. How do I say this?
Rizacos.
Yeah. Alli Rizacos, Imposter Syndrome coach to the stars.
Yes.
We'll see if she can close me live during this show, because I have imposter syndrome like you wouldn't believe. Those of you who don't know me that well are probably like, wait, what? What is this guy talking about? All of my friends behind the scenes today after my LinkedIn post were like, ha, that GIF is exactly you. Because I always think the sky is falling on me and I'm useless and everyone's going to pass me and I'm never going to get another client and everything is bad. It's the Western New Yorker in me, you know, if you know, you know. So as usual, drop your questions in the chat. We'll get to them. I'll take everybody's name down, get a queue going. I'm going to kind of get out of the way, let Alli do her thing. We're really privileged to have her here. And I'm excited to learn from you, Alli, and I'll let you take it away.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I don't see any familiar faces, but now the next time we see each other, I will. I thought maybe I would see someone I know, but all good. That's cool. I just made how many new friends? 21 new friends, which is cool. Cynthia, loving the margarita glass, loving the vibe. Your energy is great already. So, okay, cool. So today what I have planned is obviously to talk about imposter syndrome while we drink, which is probably the best way to do it. Because I was actually on a kind of panel the other day where there was 200 people on the panel. It wasn't me talking, but I attended it and they were talking about imposter syndrome, and someone said, thank you for talking about such a taboo topic. And I was like, whoa, like, since I talk about it all the time, I don't see it as or feel it as taboo anymore, but I can totally appreciate that it can feel like a taboo topic. Thus why tequila helps. So, yes. So here's my plan for today. I have some slides, but I don't want to do death by slides because that's not fun. We're going to play a little game. It may be a drinking game. Just bring out your college spirit. I saw everyone kind of do like a little shimmy when I said that.
we all got ready. We're all getting ready. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about kind of my take on imposter syndrome. It might be a little bit different than what you know. We're going to talk about what it is and what it isn't. And I'm going to leave you with some tools that you can use as well. So, okay, let me get the slides going here. Hold on. Like I said, not death by slides, but some slides are appropriate. All right. Bingo, present. Okay. So who am I? So I'm Alli. I've been in sales for about 15 years. And I've spent 8 of those years. Well, I guess I've been a coach for 8 years, and I'll tell you that story in a second. But I used to work at Salesforce. I had some other kind of sketchy sales jobs before that. One sketchy sales job. The rest were fine. But I was at Salesforce for 8 years. I left Salesforce literally January 2020. Which, let me tell you, March 2020, I was like, oh, did I make a huge mistake when the pandemic happened? And I'm like, why did I leave and go to a 90-person company? But it worked out. So I left and I went to a company called Hi Mama, which is a Toronto-based scale-up. It's a tech company that sells software to childcares, which was obviously hit pretty hard during COVID. What industry wasn't? But the role I took on there was head of revenue enablement. And I definitely felt a ton of imposter syndrome in that role. And I'll talk about that in a second. How I want to frame a little bit of my story here is these two kind of tendencies that really define who I am. And so I'm a hyperachiever and I'm also a people pleaser. So what that means is I love to be productive. I love to win. I love to be the best. But all of that is kind of wrapped up in I do those things so that people like me. So it's very, very hard to live with sometimes because it feels like it's coming at both angles, right? And I tell you that so that I can tell you the stories of like the many times that I felt imposter syndrome, but I'm going to tell you two. And then how I kind of really got into this as my profession, if you will. So when I got hired at Salesforce back in the day, I was hired as a BDR, so outbound prospector. And as a hyperachiever, I was like, well, I need to be the best. I just have to be the best BDR or else I'm a loser and I'm going to die. And so, that was the strategy I used and it totally worked. Like I figured out the game. I knew how to play the game and it worked. And I was like the number one BDR, 3 quarters of a row, top of the world. It felt great. And then I get promoted to AE, which is the natural progression. And I don't know what happened to that success, but it did not come with me. I like completely fell flat on my face becoming an AE. I'm sure some people can share that same feeling and sentiment. If you've gone from BDR to AE, it's a totally different game. But as a hyperachiever, I was like just beside myself to see myself at the bottom of the dashboard, just like couldn't, just no self-worth left, right? Like totally the dashboard was the representation of my self-worth type of thing. And I had no idea like how to get out of like the repeated bad months. And so what serendipitously happened is I was complaining to a mentor of mine who didn't work at Salesforce. And I think he was just honestly fed up with the complaining. And he referred me to a colleague of his that is a coach. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I am like just desperado right now to find some kind of solution to this very big challenge. Like I was like, sales must not be for me. This is the end of my career. Just like total all or nothing extremist thinking, right? I'm sure everyone can appreciate that and resonates. And so found a coach and I just like knew instinctively that I had to hire this woman because I immediately felt seen and heard and not judged. And that's a huge part of imposter syndrome, right? There's a ton of judgment that you have about yourself because you think that other people are judging you, but really you only think that other people are judging you because you're judging yourself, right? So you kind of need to figure out what's going on with you first before you try to fix the world, because guess what? You're not going to. So I hired her and I got so much clarity around, who I am, what I value. I gained so much trust in myself, so much more confidence, upgraded my mindset to like, you know what? I don't know why I thought I couldn't do this. I for sure can, and I'm going to figure out a way how. So the mindset was a huge thing. And so I literally went from the bottom of the dashboard to the number one rep on the team. I went to club that year. So that's like, when you hit over 100% of your number, no one else on my team hit 100% of their number. It was just like a total like rags to riches type of story, like underdog story. And I was just absolutely convinced. I was like, holy shit, like coaching is literally a secret weapon. I don't know why everyone doesn't have a coach. And that was 8 years ago. So that was kind of my first foray into imposter syndrome. And then I was there for 7 more years. So you can just imagine how many more times I felt it. But the time that I really felt it was when I left. And then I took on this role as head of revenue enablement. So 1, I've never been the head of anything. And 2, I've never even worked in revenue enablement. So just like imposter syndrome galore, right? I'm sure, again, people can resonate with that. And I just saw how destructive it was. Like I never felt like anything I did was good enough. I was overworking, couldn't sleep, would wake up in the middle of the night, just like always second guessing everything I did. And it just felt so shitty. Like I was like, this isn't me. Like, and I know I'm not performing well because I'm clearly like so in my head and so not doing the right things because I'm worried about what other people are thinking instead of just actually focusing on like, what's the impact that I'm having? What's the impact that I want to have? So on and so forth. So I brought it up to the leadership team that I was feeling imposter syndrome. And to my surprise, I really respect this leadership team. And to my surprise, every single one of them was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I feel imposter syndrome. And I was shocked because these are people I see like super respect, super confident, like so good at their jobs. And every single one of them felt imposter syndrome. And it was kind of this light bulb moment. And I was like, I think this is pretty universal. And so that's when I kind of really knew that this was something that I wanted to sink my teeth into because of the impact that it can have on people and how much how, I guess, like curable, even though it's not a disease or anything, but how we really don't have to buy into it, right? And so that's kind of my life mission now, is really helping people get out of their own way, eliminating self-doubt, creating confidence and clarity. And so that's what I do as an imposter syndrome coach. So that's a little bit about me. So now it's time to play a game after that long spiel about who I am. Okay, so we're gonna play games. Everyone remembers Never Have I Ever, right? Where like in college, you'd sit around. And you'd
this
like,
is a slightly rowdy crew that is here in person tonight.
I love it.
There's 500 people in the group, and I can't say that about all 500, but there's a lot of faces here that have definitely played that game. Let's just put it that way.
In a dorm or
yes,
100%.
We'll leave the specifics out. Just people here are familiar, I think.
Yeah. I know I have my go-to Never Have I Ever, by the way, and we're not going to talk about it, but
maybe at the end. Depends how many margaritas Cynthia has had by the end of the evening.
Exactly. Okay, so we're gonna play Never Have I Ever, but we're gonna play Have You Ever Felt? Okay, and so there's 10 slides, so 10 different kind of things that you maybe felt, and if you have felt it, take a sip, and then try to remember how many sips you took too, because I'm going to ask you at the end. So let's go. Okay, take a sip. If you've ever felt like you just got lucky in your career and at some point someone's going to find out. I love Brian has started drinking without me finishing the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's going to find out and that you don't know what you're doing, right? So I saw a bunch of people, I can't see everyone, but I saw a bunch of people drink. You might be a little tipsy after these.
This is the first drinking game we've ever played on Tequila Tuesday, by the way. This is a big milestone, Alli, and I appreciate you.
Okay, well, something else I should have said in my bio is that I love drinking games. Okay, I'm like the beer pong queen. Back in my day, not now, but the beer pong queen of my day. And so that makes me really proud.
That's great.
Okay. All right. What's the next one? Oh, let's go. There we go. Okay. Take a sip if you've ever felt like you're always one unexpected phone call away from being fired. Brian's face is the best. Someone said this to me the other day, like, my boss put a meeting on the calendar for tomorrow and there's no agenda and I don't know why they want to talk. I'm for sure getting fired. And I was like, oh, bless your heart. I feel you. I feel you. All right. Take a sip if you've ever felt like your performance determines your sense of worth and how you feel about yourself. Wayne's into it. I saw the head nod.
I'm kind of in the same camp as my buddy Eric Davidek, and I'm like, I may need to get a new bottle.
I love it.
I see you, Eric. I see you just got a brand new bottle.
By the way, if you're not drinking alcohol, you can also take a sip of water.
Yeah, you can drink.
Inclusive here. Okay. Take a sip if you've ever felt like you keep saying yes and the work keeps piling on, but there's never enough time to do it. And so you sacrifice things you enjoy just to get more work done. Dale's done it. Dale's about to go work after this.
I'm going to not drink on that one because there's detail there that is not listed that would determine whether I do that or not.
Okay. Okay, fair. Like what detail?
Like how much I'm getting paid to do said thing. So I can get pushed into keep saying yes if certain things get thrown at me that have a large dollar sign when I know it's a bad idea because I'm going to push myself to the edge.
Right.
But if there's no dollar sign, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Right. So the decision gets harder when there's more dollar signs.
For me, massively harder. Massively.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect at this by any stretch. I just wanted to try to drink one less drink than Eric.
Yeah.
So far I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a clear driver and value there in what you just said, right?
Yeah.
All right. Take a sip if you've ever felt like you don't want to speak up in meetings because you're afraid you're going to say something stupid. That comes up a ton in my client calls.
Not that one for me.
Oh, interesting. Some people, yes.
Few people who passed on that one. We got a little strength in us, team. We got a little strength.
Love it. That comes up so much in my client calls. It's interesting. Cool. Take a sip if you've ever felt like you can't go on a vacation without stressing about work and checking emails or Slack and get
They
back.
literally don't make a bottle big enough for this one.
Just as exhausted as you left. Yeah. Yeah. This one really came to light this week because my client went on vacation and she was like, holy shit, this is the first time I've ever felt like I actually got to be on vacation because I didn't check Slack and I didn't check email and I didn't stress about it and nothing imploded.
Danita, you're cracking me up in the chat.
I've never had a problem with vacation. I got to keep the chat open. Okay, whoops, I think I went too far. Yeah, hold on, is that the right one? Yeah. Okay, take a sip if you've ever felt like you need constant external validation to feel good enough at your job.
Wait, can you define external? You mean anybody other than self?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Take a sip if you've ever felt like the next job will be the one that makes you happy.
No, that one.
Well, you found your thing, Scott.
No, I just know that no matter what I do work-wise, it's not going to make me happy. I just gave up on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all fleeting. That's not to sound like, I'm super depressive. It's just a different, anyways, we can psychoanalyze me later. Maybe
a little bit of a coping mechanism.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, 100% coping mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Take a sip if you've ever felt like you doubt yourself a lot and lack confidence, especially when there are people more senior than you in the room. Can't see everyone. Eric, still going strong.
I see. Maybe we'll have time to go back to some of these slides. And I apologize, Wayne, for monopolizing the microphone. Wayne was very mad at me last week because I asked the most questions. This one for me, Alli, if it stopped at the word confidence, so if it just said, take a sip if you've ever felt like you doubt yourself and lack confidence, I would drink the whole bottle. But the moment for me that you say, especially when there are people more senior than you in the room, I no longer want to drink because all of a sudden I'm like, fuck you, I belong here. And this different kind of Scott comes out. So I don't want to drink. So that one is interesting to me.
The rebel comes out.
Well, maybe that's the word. I don't know if that's the word. But
what do you, it sounds like you're proving a point, like approving something in that statement.
We'll psychoanalyze me later. I don't want to piss Wayne off too much.
Which is true. I absolutely could have left the sentence at self-doubt and lack of confidence. Point blank, no question. What I hear a lot though is typically a lot of this comes down to comparison, right? Yeah. So, there's someone senior in the room. In comparison to them, I don't have the credentials. I'm not going to sound as right. And so that's where I added that in. Yeah. By no means is this drinking game absolutely flawless, but
no, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. This is great.
Cool. Okay. Take a sip if you've ever felt like you're in the hamster wheel. No matter what you do, it never seems to be enough and never seems to be fulfilling. Something stupid? I don't know why that is there. To be honest, I don't know why that's
whatever, Nat. You should be drinking water at the very least. I don't believe you. I see you, Nat. You text me a lot. You're definitely in the hamster wheel, dog.
How come? Tell me how.
I'm going to text you after this show. And it's going to be.
Come on.
Put yourself back on mute, Nat. Put yourself back on mute.
All right.
Yeah. Always chasing something, maybe? Title, money, status. Anyway. Okay. So out of 10, how many sips did you take? Share it in the chat. 7. Ooh, lots of 7. 8, 7. 4.
Randy? 4? My God. Randy, I don't know if you know this, but Alli's looking to hire. She's trying to expand her company. Apparently, You need to go work with her. Holy smokes. 3? Who wrote 3? Nat? Good God. I don't believe Nat.
That's denial going on here.
I'll take Randy at face value and believe her, but Nat is full of shit.
Okay. Randy, tell us your secrets if that's the truth.
Well, it was just the way some of the questions were worded. Like I'm kind of with Scott in there's that rebel. If people are in the room and the way they're acting, that person comes out in me. So it was the way some of the questions were worded. So
my semantics. Yeah. Well, I think that's really insightful regardless about who you are, right? About kind of some of your identity patterns, right?
Don't tell me no.
Yeah. Oh, I could get into my psychoanalyzing there. Okay, so which one hit home the hardest for people? Which one was like, fuck?
Anybody, take yourself off mute real quick.
Yeah.
If one of them really hit hard for you. Anybody?
Having senior leadership in the room and being confident enough to speak up.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'll hop in on that one too.
Oh, interesting.
Tanner, thank you, Tanner.
I'm telling you, that's a huge one for people, the comparison game.
Someone more senior in the room for me. Not lack of confidence, but yeah, senior in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I've often felt like I'm gonna be found out. I've been in a role and like one day they're gonna call me out as not belonging there. It really sucks.
Yeah. That phone call, one phone call away. Yeah.
Well, I agree with that one, Cynthia, for sure.
Oof, that was a huge one for me, man. Every time I get a phone call or a meeting, I'm like, that's it. This is the day. It's happening. I was in constant fear when I was at Salesforce of getting fired. Even though, okay, I should preface that by saying when I was a rep, when I became a manager, less so, because then I realized how hard it is to fire anyone. Then I'm like, okay, I got at least 90 days.
Okay, that's a big company problem. That problem doesn't exist at startups. Let me tell you.
Sure, yeah.
Go
to a big company. It'll take longer to get fired.
There's a secret for people who want to hang out and hide out. Go to a big company.
That's true. Okay. And so if those ones hit home, is there one though that you want to shift out of the most? One that you're like, oh man, if I could just make this shift.
Meaning if I could cure myself from any of the 10, which one?
Yeah. If I could not drink to one of these and not feel it anymore.
Or drink out of pride instead of shame.
Oh.
That was an inner monologue that came out.
Totally.
Mine would be the vacation one. That vacation one is so brutal for me. We could spend the whole hour and a half on that probably, because I saw a couple people say in the chat like, oh, I went on vacation and didn't touch my phone. I did all that. Great. I'm thinking great. I'm very proud of you. But what I'm also thinking is when I turn my computer on, I am so fucked. And I live in fear of that so much. I'd rather work a little bit during vacation than shut it all the way off and come back to an avalanche that I can't escape from. And that level of anxiety for me is like paralyzing. And so I cannot fully shut off. So if I could cure myself of one thing, for me, that would be the thing. Yes, Jill, can't make a few hours without checking. Same, girl. I am the same. Yeah, because I'm terrified of logging off for 5 days or whatever and logging on and being like 9,624 emails await you or Slack messages. No. Yeah. So that's the one I would cure myself.
Is it just the quantity? Or what do you think you're missing out on? Like I have a suspicion that you think there's something that you're really missing out on, like a huge money opportunity, or you know what I mean? Like,
here's what it is for me, actually. I feel like I'm missing out on the opportunity to serve people. And so I'm letting people down some way. I am failing people some way. I'm a blocker in some way. That's my biggest fear. It's not the money part. It's just like, I'll just pick on Tanner since he's the CEO in the room that I know. Be like, I'm letting down Tanner somehow. Or it'll be this community. I'll be like, I just went 5 days without responding to anybody here. So anyway, I don't want to monopolize this. I don't want to make this a Scott therapy session, Wayne, but you know.
Well, I think
this topic
Scott,
is legit for me. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Scott, I agree with everything you said, but for me, it's like I'm nervous to take vacation because always nervous because it's like there's always like this subtle undertone of like, should you really go on vacation and really unplug? Whether even if your boss says, "Oh yeah, you should do," I feel like they don't really mean it. So I'm nervous and I'm like, I need to be checking. I'm needed. When we all know that's not true, right? Necessarily.
The question that comes up for me is like, what's the cost though? Right? What's the cost of never disconnecting, of not going on vacation? What's the cost? Because obviously it's serving you in some kind of way. Scott, for you, it's like you never have to feel that like impending avalanche feeling, right? So there's the benefit there that's serving you, but everything comes at a cost, right?
100%.
So, you know, think about that. What's the cost though? Sure, there's a benefit, but does the benefit outweigh the cost, right?
Yeah.
Cool, lively group, I love it. But so as you can imagine, all of these things that we just drank to are kind of the underlying thoughts and feelings of imposter syndrome, right? And sorry, I'm trying to look at the chat and do this at the same time. I can't look at the chat. So
don't look at the chat, Alli. I got you.
Closing it. Okay. So here, hold on. Let me keep going here. So let's talk about what imposter syndrome actually is, like, you know, what the scientists say or whatever. So what happened was, like, back in the 70s, these two researchers did a research study on women specifically. And women, it was like women in like high academic ranks. And what they found was that these women felt what they then called imposter syndrome. And so what they call imposter syndrome is a collection of thoughts of inadequacy that persist despite the evidence of success, right? They also found that at least 70 people have felt it, and 70% of people and 40% of people are feeling it right now. Anytime I do these workshops, which obviously it's not a scientific experiment by any means or a good scientific research study, but it's like 80 to 90%. I think it's way more prevalent than this study says. And that it can have serious consequences on your career, your mental health, your vacationing, your relationships, and your well-being, right? And so we're going to talk about what those consequences could be. And I'm actually going to quantify it, because usually when you quantify something with money, people start to listen. So Intuit did a study about what the actual kind of quantified cost of imposter syndrome is year over year. And so they broke it down into these different categories where imposter syndrome has a huge effect on you. So stress and work tension and lack of sleep. Like I said, I couldn't sleep. I kept waking up. Lost productivity. So because a lot of people will like overthink things, like it takes them 3 hours to write an email because God forbid they say something stupid, or God forbid they don't say the right thing, or it's going to a senior person and oh my God, and this, right? All that kind of stuff. They don't negotiate pay, right? They don't think that they're worth it. They're just like happy that someone is even recognizing them, so they don't negotiate their pay. And my favorite is unnecessary purchases. To me, imposter syndrome is like basically the like physical representation of keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like you're trying to keep up with this image of like what you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be and what other people think you should be and whatnot. And so you make a ton of unnecessary purchases to frankly impress people that don't really matter, to make yourself feel like you fit in, because really this is all about fitting in and belonging. And all of that can cost you about $35K a year. And maybe in a year, that's not a huge deal, but think about it year over year over year, right? The compound effect, of course. So what is it not? So the study, like I said, was done on women, which is why it is often said that it's like a women's issue. It is not. It was just a study done on women. There hasn't been another one, right? Maybe I'll do one. By the way, I have both male and female clients.
Wait,
And
can I pause you for a second?
yeah.
I personally have never heard of imposter syndrome being a women only issue. That's new that's new information for me.
So the #1 Harvard Business Review article of 2021 was an article called "Stop Telling Women They Have Imposter Syndrome." Because, so just as a point of like, I don't know if the women on the call agree, but like it's typically thought to be something that women feel and that men don't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never heard that before, and I would have never associated it like that.
Well,
anyway.
the men that reach out to me on LinkedIn are typically like, I think I feel this way. Like, do men feel this way too?
Well, Dale just made an interesting point. He says men won't admit it, but
yeah, maybe men don't talk about it as much. Also, there's a thing. So I was just on Andy Paul's podcast, and we talked about how for women, being raised as a woman, there is a whole slew of standards that you must match up to, right? And there was a study done that asked women, like, what are all the things that you feel like you need to be good at all times? And they wrote like 13 to 15 things. And men, so they asked men to do the same thing, and men wrote 3 things. So it's just like the sheer volume of shit that women think they need to be good at all times, I think is what compounds the feeling that women feel this more than men. If that makes sense. So it's also like not a disease or a psychological disorder. You know, you're not broken by any means. Really, the distinction I want to make here is that like, it's not, I always thought it's not something like you have, it's just something that you feel. And we're going to do an exercise later about that, because your feelings are just really come from your thoughts, right? Your thoughts create your feelings, your thoughts create how you feel in your body, a bodily reaction. And so it's actually just a collection of thoughts, right? And I'm going to show you this exercise later to show you how powerful your mind can be and how malleable it can be as well. The other myth is that like, it'll just go away when you get to the next rank, you know, next status, next title. Obviously, we know that's not true. And that like really successful people can't possibly feel this way, right? You know, like, does, I don't know, Matt Damon feel this way? Does Ben, whatever, I don't know I don't know why I said Matt Damon. I was listening to a podcast that mentioned him, but like, he can't possibly feel it. And all of them have. I mean, if successful people didn't feel it, then like Robin Williams would probably still be alive, you know? So why it should matter. So if you're a leader, I don't know what the demographics are here. I think it's more leaders, but if you're a leader, you know, most of your team has probably felt this or is currently feeling it. And it's something that you can help them overcome by at least having a conversation, because not talking about this stuff is where it festers. Secrecy is the worst. For leaders and teams, there are obviously personal and professional consequences that can happen from imposter syndrome. But the other reason why it should matter to you is because in my world, how I see imposter syndrome is that it's actually an alert signal to you. And the alert signal that it means to me is that imposter syndrome is really a wake-up call to go inward and get really clear on your personal mission and the impact that you want to have. What happens time and time again when people show up to work with me, there's no clarity. They're just circling around this thought, that thing, this judgment, this person wants me to do, but like just so much jumbled thoughts and no clarity. And if that's how you feel internally, how do you think you show up then, right? Not clear and not making the impact that you want, right? And then that just compounds. So if you're not clear and you're not making the impact, then you feel like you're not doing a good job, like, oh my God, someone's going to find me out, la, 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 right? So this is really around personal mission, which is really around clarity and impact. So that's exactly the framework that I created, really around getting people clear around the impact that they want to have. Because I just truly believe that, you know, we are not just here to like hit quotas and make money, right? Like there's always something deeper. And like maybe early on in our 20s, that's what it was about, because we like wanted to feel cool and stuff. Like I certainly did. But you get to this point where you're like, yeah, this is just like not really meaningful enough, you know? And you get to this point where you're like, I want to make an impact. And you said it perfectly, Scott, right? You're like, I feel like leaving means I'm going to let someone down, right? I'm not going to make the impact. So I'm not going to be able to have an impact, right? So you said it perfectly. And so
Yep.
The funny part is like when people show up to work with me, typically their goal is actually confidence because they don't really realize that they're not clear. They just know that they're lacking confidence. They have self-doubt and they're lacking confidence. And what I truly believe is that you don't actually lack confidence. You lack that mission that allows you to have impact. And so if you get clear on that mission that is meaningful to you, that makes you feel alive, that's what drives the confidence. You don't even have to try to feel confident when you're really clear about your mission and about the impact that you want to have. That's where confidence is pulling you versus you trying to become confident, if you will. So I created this kind of pillars of self-mastery where, the convergence of these three things really is what creates impact. And I know there's a lot on this slide. I will go into it in a bit more detail, but essentially when you focus on you, right? Like I said, I'm not sure if all of you are leaders, but regardless if you have the title or not, you are always a leader, no matter what, you can lead. And by leading yourself first and figuring out who you are, that's where your impact is going to come from, right? And so I'll talk about this in a little bit, but what gets in the way of all of this is the fucking shit going on up here, right? All the thoughts, all the bullshit, all the doubt and all the ruminating and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I want to go into first before we can get to this chaotic Venn diagram. Let's talk about the shit that gets in the way. So typically in these workshops, I actually send out an assessment beforehand for you to do. I'll send it out after. Y'all will have a great time doing it a little bit tipsy. By the way, it'll feel better. And so the first step is really getting aware of like, what are these thoughts holding me back, right? Like, what are my constant thoughts, right? Since imposter syndrome is about incessant thoughts that we have, what are those thoughts? So what I want to teach you about today is our brain and where thoughts come from, right? So for all intents and purposes, there are two main parts of your brain. We have the limbic system and then the prefrontal cortex. Your limbic system is like what they call like your reptilian brain, right? So it is, like animals have a limbic system as well. It is literally your flight or fight response system, right? It is your survival system, right? So it serves a purpose, absolutely. And that's why, through evolution, we gained the limbic system from our, ancestors and whatnot. But the problem is that we no longer have physical threat on a daily basis that's threatening our actual survival, right? But the problem is that where we register pain in our brains, they've done like brain scans for this, where we register pain in our brain is the exact same place where we register social and emotional like discomfort, if you will, or social and emotional pain, right? Physical pain and social and emotional pain, your brain registers into the same area. So your brain doesn't know the difference between you about to die and you're about to get your feelings hurt, or you're about to feel stupid, or someone's not going to like you, right? So that's kind of an aha moment for people because you're like, oh, right? Like my brain is just interpreting this as if I'm going to die, but really I'm just kind of speaking out loud or public speaking, right? People feel like they're going to die. It's one of like everyone's biggest fears, right? You're not. It's just the way that your brain registers it, right? Then we have the prefrontal cortex. This is literally the only thing that makes us distinctly human. No other species on the planet has a prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is where you do all your thinking and analytical thought and all that kind of stuff, right? Practical kind of stuff. That's why we can create amazing inventions that no one ever thought were possible or no one ever dreamed of, right? And that's why animals are literally still in kind of like fight or flight, survive, find food, don't die, right? That's literally what makes us different. So the problem is that we've had so many more years in our evolution with our limbic system and so few years with our prefrontal cortex. So the limbic system is like on crack, right? And so what it kind of looks like in your brain is like your limbic system is like a 5-lane highway. The circuitry is like right there. So that's why your first thought when something, happens that is making you feel a certain way, right? Maybe someone gave you feedback that was hard. Your first thought is kind of that like, right? Because the first place, because the circuitry in your brain to your limbic system is a 5-lane highway, it gets to that place first, right? It doesn't hit your prefrontal cortex first. It hits your limbic system, which is all about survival and all about emotion, right? And so the problem is that our prefrontal cortex is like a dirt road. So your brain's like lazy. It's just like, I'm going to take the 5-lane highway. So much easier. Why would I take the dirt road? It's so gross and icky, right? And because we keep taking the 5-lane highway over and over again, right? We keep telling ourselves that we're not good enough. We keep, telling ourselves that we're going to get fined out, whatever it is. All we're doing is reinforcing the 5-lane highway, and we're leaving the dirt road to be a dirt road, right? So one of the big things that I work on with my clients is, first of all, recognizing what those like limbic system thoughts are. We're going to get to that in a second. But how do you turn this dirt road into a paved road? And then from a paved road to a 2-lane road, and so on and so forth, right? Like, how do you strengthen that connection? And the good news is that our brains are malleable. That's what neuroplasticity is. You can change how you think. You can change your brain. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's talk about the characters in our minds. So one of the kind of leading coaches in the coaching world created this amazing diagram and this amazing way to understand these pesky thoughts in our brain. So they're called saboteurs, and they're named that because they are literally self-sabotaging thoughts, right? And so you'll see my two, right? You'll see the hyperachiever and the pleaser in the middle, right? So those are my saboteurs. Although they can help me achieve things, they definitely are self-sabotaging as well. They definitely do not lead to fulfillment. So what these 9 characters represent is kind of your core programming, if you will. I took on the hyperachiever and the people pleaser voices in my head when I was probably between the ages of 5 to 7. That's when I created these talk tracks about, I need to be productive, I need to be the best, and I need to be always liked, and this is how I'm going to do it. I made that story up when I was 5 to 7 years old, and I've just kept reinforcing it my whole life. And that's the 5-lane highway for me. So for you, it might look like the controller. Always like to control things, you do it better, you want it done your way, and that feels safe for you, right? Because there's safety in these tendencies, right? But the problem is that this is where imposter syndrome comes from. This is the birthplace of it, these 9 host of characters. And you will probably recognize yourself in all of these, but there are definitely 1 to 2 that are your dominant thought that you always come back to. And once you can figure out what the dominant thought is, you can start to now have a different relationship to it, right? You can start to have a conversation with it, right? First, you need to recognize what the thought is. So if you'll take the test, I'll send you the link later. And let's say you're a hyperachiever too, right? And you'll now start to recognize what that sounds like and when it shows up and where you get triggered, right? And when you can do that, you can start to talk to it and also say, I'm not going to believe you today. Because the fact of the matter is that yes, they might be trying to keep you safe, but you're not in physical threat, right? You are not going to die. So you need to push through these saboteurs so that you can access that other part of you that is courageous, that is bold, that, believes that you can be way more successful than you are, so on and so forth. So the ultimate saboteur is the judge. So anytime that you are feeling judgment of yourself, of others, or of circumstances, that is a saboteur. And the judge and judgment is the cause of much of our disappointment, our anger, our regret, guilt, shame, anxiety, and stress, right? What it always comes back to is there is judgment when you are stressed and feeling anxious. Sorry, did you want to say something, Scott?
No, I'm just nodding my head, nodding my head right now.
Cool. So we already talked about the hyperachiever, but I'll just mention it again, right? So the hyperachiever depends on constant performance and achievement for self-respect and self-validation, right?
Many of us probably are here.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
I think it's one of the biggest ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially in tech sales.
Yeah, and especially amongst sales leadership, which there's a lot of sales leaders here.
Yeah, exactly. And I have developed a better relationship with my hyperachiever, and I've kind of gotten over some of its tactics. I'm able to recognize them. But even last week, if you saw my post, I think today, I was just all in my head last week being like, I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to do more biz dev, more workshops, more podcasts, more. And I was like working constantly. I don't have a boss. I don't have a quota, and I don't report my earnings to the streets. Who the fuck is telling me to do more? Like I had to stop myself. Like, who the hell is saying that? Like, who says I need to do more? And the answer is no one.
That sentence is so great. That should literally be your post tomorrow on LinkedIn. That first sentence that you just said. Short, sweet, powerful, to the point. That was soundbite worthy. That was great.
I will definitely take that sound.
That one hit me hard right there.
I love that. Well, that was kind of what it was about today. It was about the picture was like, says who, right? Like, who says I need to do any of these things? And what happens is when you're constantly forcing and doing more and thinking that it's going to work, it doesn't fucking work, first of all. Then you feel more shitty about yourself, right? And then you think you need to do more because clearly that wasn't enough. So you're going to do more, right? And it's just a never ending cycle of insanity, right? And thankfully, like I know how to recognize it now, although it took me a few days. And it's like, it's about honoring yourself, and it's about honoring like what you actually want to be doing. So I literally took out a piece of paper and I'm like, what is the shit I don't want to be doing? And what is the shit I do want to be doing? And where do I need to start saying no and start saying yes? Like, what am I tolerating in my life right now that I don't need to be, right? I mentioned the controller. So controllers are often anxiety ridden. It's a need to take charge and control situations and people's actions to one's own will. The problem with the controller: 1, you take on way too much because you think you need to. And 2, you create learned helplessness around you. Because if you're just going to do everything, no one else is going to try. No one else is going to even, step into your little zone because they're like, I don't want to feel your wrath if I do this wrong. So you just do it. I'm not going to even learn how, right? So if you're a leader and you're a controller, oh mama, you need to figure this one out, because you will just have a bunch of like basically people that don't know how to think for themselves and aren't resourceful, right? So the big thing about the saboteurs, and I kind of already alluded to this, is that they're so seductive, and they can and will lead you to achievement, but they will never lead you to fulfillment. So like the hyperachiever, right? It tells me I need to do more, and if I do more, I'll feel better. Guess what? Even if I did more and it worked, guess what it would tell me next? Do more.
Do more. Yes. Yes.
It's never ending, right? Because achievement is great, but it's never the end result. It's never the end, right? So they never lead to fulfillment. So if your thoughts are about how you're not enough, which is where this is all really coming from, you will constantly chase more, right? More achievement, more success, more money, more titles, more recognition. And that is what they call the scarcity mindset, right? You are not enough, so you need to outwardly seek more so that you can feel enough. Just like those unnecessary purchases, the $18,000 of unnecessary purchases, that's my scarcity mindset, friends, right? Buying a bunch of shit they don't need because they want to feel enough, right?
Tanner's out there buying Jordans every 8 months, I think you said. That's his thing. Yep. 8 months, was that right, Tanner? I don't know. Maybe I got the time.
8 months, 8 days.
Give or take.
You got the whole collection. You got a whole closet.
Okay, so the only way that we can create a new reality for ourselves is to think different thoughts, right? I've been kind of harping on this, right? If we have all these negative thoughts, that's going to kind of become a reality. Because at the end of the day, our physical world, what we live in, your perception of it at least, is just a manifestation of what you think about constantly, what you habitually pay attention to in your mind, right? So you got to get clear on what you habitually pay attention to, right? Which is these saboteurs. You got to get clear on them. But I want to show you the power of your mind right now. So although we've been drinking, we can put the drinks down for a second because you're going to close your eyes for maybe 90 seconds. So do that for me now. Everyone close your eyes. Trust that nothing's going to pop out at you and you're not going to look weird because everyone else's eyes are closed. So
well, this will be a weird part of the recording, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully people that watch or do it as well. Okay. So close your eyes, and I want you to, in your mind's eye, imagine yourself at a beach, right? Ooh, Cynthia just took a big breath of fresh air at the beach. Right, so exactly, like what do you feel, right? What do you see? Does it make you take a breath in? Do you feel the sun on your skin? Do you feel the sand on your toes? You know, where are you? Is it a beach you've been to? And really like take in that experience, right? Do you hear seagulls or sounds or anything? Can you smell what the ocean smells like, or maybe someone barbecuing? You know, really use all of your senses to experience yourself at the beach right now in your mind. And now stay at the beach. And I want you to, in your mind's eye, take your non-dominant arm. So if you're ready, take your left arm. And I want you to write the letter A in the sand with your elbow. So imagine yourself in your eye writing, in your mind, sorry, writing the letter A in the sand with your elbow. So what does the sand feel like on your elbow? Are you like crouched? Does it kind of feel weird? Because you probably have to be in kind of a weird position. Maybe you're not flexible. Still feeling the sun a little bit. Maybe not noticing the sun because you're focused on writing the A, right? All right. You can open your eyes. So I'm guessing that everyone could imagine themselves at a beach, right? Because I'm assuming that
that was not hard for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming that everyone's been to a beach, hopefully, at this age and this time of your life. Now, has anyone ever written the letter A in the sand with your elbow before in real life? I don't know if the chat's going off, I can't see, but what do we got? Yeses, nos?
No, nobody has ever written with their elbow in the sand. No.
Could everyone imagine themselves doing it though? Yeah.
Yeah. I did it on my desk.
Just to feel the kinesthetics.
I did. I totally did it on my desk. I don't know if anybody else did, but I fully.
Cynthia was doing it. Yeah. So if you've never done it before, how did you know how to picture it? How did you know what it would feel like? Right? So my point is that your imagination is freaking limitless. Okay. You can imagine anything you want. And also that your body responds to your thoughts, right? So Cynthia, you immediately took a deep breath. You're like, oh, I'm already relaxed because I'm thinking about the beach, right? Whereas if your saboteurs are popping up, judging the shit out of you, telling you you're not good enough, oh, you probably know what that feeling is, right? Constricted, tense, right? But it's just a thought. Nothing has changed. You could be at the beach and think those thoughts and then feel constricted too, you know? But they're just thoughts. But again, your imagination is limitless. So how do you learn to have better thoughts, right? That's really what this is all about. How do you learn to not listen to the saboteurs and feed yourself more empowering thoughts that are going to lead you to create the impact that you want to have, right? So as I mentioned, I will send out the assessment after this. So take the assessment, you can find out your saboteurs. The other thing I want you to do is name it for yourself. So, you know, they already have names, which is really helpful. Our brain works really well when we label things, right? So, you know, my hyperachiever, it doesn't say, hi, I'm a hyperachiever. It says like, you know, you do more, you're not good enough, like keep working out or whatever it is, right? And so you can give it an actual name so that it's easier to label it when it comes up, but also so that you know that it's not you. It's just these thoughts. So I'll give you a perfect example. One of my clients, he has his two top saboteurs are restless and victim. And if you're a Seinfeld fan, he names his restless saboteur Kramer and his victim saboteur George, right? So when they show up, he's like, oh, fucking Kramer's here. No, Kramer, we're not doing this today, right? And it's so easy for him to like immediately think of Kramer being so like schizophrenic and scattery, right? And so if you can give it your own personal name based on the character or whatever it might be, even better than just like the hyperachiever, like that kind of label. And when you can, then that allows you to be an observer, really, and not make it you, and make it something that you can observe and not force yourself and not have to believe it. And then you can also choose differently. Instead of choosing the judgment that it's bringing up, can you choose curiosity, or can you choose compassion instead? Cool. Okay, how am I doing on time? What do we got? 8 o'clock.
We're
Okay.
fine. We're fine.
Okay. So step 2. So once we like clear the junk of the saboteurs and all the bullshit that they've been telling us for a long time, which it takes a while. It's not just going to like immediately go away, nor do we want them to fully go away. Listen, they are there for our survival at the end of the day, but we just don't need them to be at like fucking high octane yelling at us all day.
I feel like that's a super important point, by the way. Because I think if you don't, my opinion, if you don't have it at all, you speed towards narcissism.
Sure.
And that whole train.
Yeah.
At least that's the story I tell myself.
Yeah. Well, I also just think it's impossible not to. Like, you have a survival brain. You know what I mean? Like, it's those thoughts are going to come, right? But they, like I said, they just don't need to be on like level 100, like volume.
Yeah.
They can
be
at, like,
I like that framing of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I tell, like, that's how I explain to my clients is like, let's turn down that volume. And that is something you can start to test out in your own mind, because your mind is fucking amazing. And anytime the thought comes up, or you're just sitting around thinking about it, right? You can literally in your mind turn down the volume of that thought. Like, you can sit there and be like, no, I'm gonna turn it down so I can't hear it, and it'll go away. Which sounds crazy, but like, you can't. You've just never tried it, right? No one's ever told you that you can do that, right? So that's like a little trick too. Okay, so yeah, once we like get clear on the junk and the voices and all that kind of stuff, then we go into like the self-reflection piece to really understand the point of this, which is like the clarity around the impact, right? So that's where we bring back the Venn diagram, a little less busy this time. So these are kind of like the 3 big pillars that I work on with my clients so that they can get clarity around the impact and not continuously just focus on the negative thoughts and the comparison, all that kind of stuff, and they can focus on the impact, right? So core values. So your core values. So, you know, a lot of people talk about values, and the problem is that we have a ton of them, right? Like I value honesty, and I value flexibility, and I value this, and I value that, but like, it's too much. You can value those things, but they're not a good compass if you have like 25 values, right? The reason for core values, and when I mean core, I mean 2, only 2. The reason to get down to 2 is that they become your compass and they become your way to make decisions, right? If you can get down to your 2 core values, that like without these things present, you do not feel like your needs are being met, that you are like okay at your core. When you can get to those 2, decision making becomes so much simpler.
That core values piece is super interesting to me. Tanner, are you there? I'm going to put you on the spot, brother. How many core values does Spiff have?
You're going to laugh because our core value is that we actually don't have core values. So it's
I actually love that secretly.
So we have like
rebellious.
Yeah, I mean, like, we still have things that we push and that we have.
You haven't published them though. You haven't published.
Yeah, like we're just trying. Like I can even share it with like anyone who's interested. We posted a pretty cool article on it, why we did it. But yeah. Anyway, so sorry that I ruined that for you.
No, you actually didn't ruin it, because part of me was hoping you'd be like, oh, we have 9 core values here at Spiff. And I'd be like, no, you have too many, because what Alli just said was any more than 2 is fluff.
Yeah.
So you actually did great, Tanner, because you don't have any. I'm with you.
Well, I think
Published.
Tanner, you tell me if
you
this
don't have
happened,
any. Sorry.
Yeah. Tell me if this is what happened. Like, you probably felt that you probably started talking about it, or, and then saw how many you actually have. And then you're like, you know what, this is fucking bullshit. Like, this doesn't mean anything,
Yeah. Also, everyone's different. So it's like trying to fit everyone into the same thing. And like some people respond well to like this core value stuff. Some people love that. Some people don't. And some people, I don't know, everyone has different aspirations and goals and ways they function. So I think, totally agree.
Yeah, for sure. I think as an individual, though, it's super important, right, that you do get down to your core values, because at the end of the day, you're the captain of your own ship. I totally get it, Tanner. Like, as the CEO of a bigger company, like, you don't want to be the only captain. You want like a lot of leaders, right, kind of forging their own paths. But as you, the captain of you need to understand your core values. Because yeah, so when a decision comes up, now you can say to yourself, is this decision going to honor my core values, or is this going to dishonor my core values? And let me tell you, when you're living a life not in alignment with your core values, that's when you feel stuck. That's when you feel unfulfilled. Like that's when everything just feels harder and off, because your core needs aren't being met, right? Then we talk about strengths. And when I say strengths, I more mean character strengths, right? So this is like the stuff that you hire for that you can't train anyone on, you know, like bravery, like kindness, like courage, you know. These are the things that like you can't like take a course on that, you know, like, and it's not skills like prospecting or operational excellence or like process driven. That's not what I'm talking about. It is like the stuff that is the core of your identity, that makes up your core like identity makeup. And the funny thing about our strengths is that we're so good at discounting them, because if something is easy to us, then it must be easy to everyone else. So obviously it's not that special, right? We're like really good at that talk track. And then when you combine your core values and your strengths, that's really where the personal mission starts to come alive, right? It's your why, it's how you're going to do it, and it's the impact that that's going to have, right? So when people get clear on that, like, man, they're, again, clients start to take vacations and actually feel like they're on vacation, right? Like, because they've created boundaries, they're so clear on their impact, their teams are clear on what's expected of them, and like clarity is just really the big theme there. They start pursuing things that they've never pursued before. So, you know, one of my clients became a runner. She's never run in her entire life, but all of a sudden now she's picked up something that she never thought that she could do. And it really just starts to get you out of those voices and the stuff that holds you back that really doesn't need to. It's the stories. Scott, you said, you know, this is the story I'm telling myself. It's the stories we've told ourselves, right? And you clear out those stories, so you get clear on this stuff so you can have the impact that you want. Okay, so we can do another exercise here, which is, how do you figure out your personal mission? And obviously it takes, you know, more than 30 seconds, but maybe it doesn't have to. So here's some advice. And if someone wants to do this with me, we can do it live.
I'll do it.
Okay. So tell me about one of your proudest moments, and specifically like a moment that like makes you feel tingly inside, almost makes you cry from joy.
Do you want me to tell you the moment or tell you the story?
Well, give us some context. Yeah.
Okay. I was 18 years old and 5 of my good friends got in a car accident. 2 of them died. 2 of them ended up in the ICU. They were seniors in high school. I was a freshman in college, and it was 2 days before my first ever college soccer game. And I was trying to figure out, should I go home for the service or should I play this game? And something told me like my buddies would want me to play the game. So I played a game. It's my first ever game. We're playing the top 25 team in the nation. We're winning 1-0. I foul somebody with like 5 minutes left and give up a penalty kick. They tie the game 1-1. I'm getting heckled by my own crowd, who's telling me what an idiot I am, blah, 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 heckling me. With 1 minute left in the game, I scored from 35 yards out, hit the game winner. And that story, like, I'm skipping all sorts of things, but it's like super powerful for me. And in a lot of ways, like, describes who I am as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. The next question I was going to ask is like, what were the strengths that you were using in that moment in the story?
I mean, I think some sense of resilience, some sense of confidence in my skill to like even be bold. And what I'm leaving out is right before I shot the ball from 30 something yards out, one of my teammates yelled, "Don't," meaning like he could see that I was about to shoot and thought I was too far out. And there was a moment where I could have stopped because
Yeah.
somebody was telling me to stop, and I kept, and I just went for it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So
What I hear is like trust in yourself.
yeah, in that particular moment, that was my first ever college soccer game. First ever. I was 18 years old. I was a freshman.
Yeah. Definitely some perseverance, some resilience, definitely some leadership too, and a lot of trust in yourself, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Can you give us one more proud moment?
One more proud moment in my life?
Yeah. Maybe career related.
I think I'm gonna mention starting serpent sales. And the reason I'm going to mention this is I was on vacation with my friend Richard Harris and our families, and kind of had this goofy idea in the water. The wives were like, "That's actually a pretty good idea," and I kind of floated the idea on LinkedIn, and the crowd of LinkedIn was like, "That's awesome." Well, I also asked like 4 or 5 people who were more powerful than me at the time,
Sure.
bigger following, richer, all of the things. They were all of what I am not, right?
All that you compared yourself to.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
They were all the carrot that I'm chasing, right?
Yeah.
And 2 of them were like, this is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And they weren't being cruel. They were just like, this is a bad idea. This is not going to work, kind of thing. And I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyways. I actually think it's a good idea. And it worked. So professionally for me, that was like a big moment. That was a first real foray into entrepreneurship. And it was in the face of people I know and respect telling me, no, you shouldn't do this.
Right. Yeah. What are the strengths that you hear in that story?
Courage. I don't know if it's a strength, but a little bit of stubbornness.
Well, I think I would call it like self-trust.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
a little bit. Okay. And a little, this is 2017 now, by the way. This is before micro communities was like a thing. I'm going to try to take a moment and pat myself on the back. It's like, there's a little bit of vision or forward thinking.
sure. Yeah.
I don't know the right phrase maybe, but like ahead of the curve a tad.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give myself credit. I'm not good at talking about this kind of stuff. So
well, I think I see a boldness, right?
I like that word. Thank you.
Yeah. So what's the theme that you're hearing in these 2 stories?
I listen to my internal monologue more than external voices.
Yeah. And that has led to some of your proudest moments.
Yeah. I had a little bit of setback in each of them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And didn't quit or give up.
Yeah.
And I feel very like emotionally invested in each of them as well. There's like there's somehow like a human element. This is not just like a strictly athletic decision or strictly business decision.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm like emotionally invested in a different way.
Yeah.
In those decisions. Human decision. Thank you, Dale.
Yeah. It's a human focused decision.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing is, I don't know you that well, but from what I perceive of you, that I think this is your shtick, and if it's not, this should be. I mean, it's you. What drives you, it makes you feel the most alive and aligned is when you are trusting yourself and helping others do the same, helping others get out of their own bullshit in their own way, trusting themselves and being bold and making an impact on other humans by doing that.
I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty spot on. I'm curious the people here who know me well if they would agree with that, but I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some branding for you in your but I think that's what it's really about for you, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's why when you made the comment about money, my spidey senses went off because I'm like, I don't know if this is really about money. I think that's a saboteur. Right?
Every time you say the word saboteur, I think about this card game called Saboteur.
Is there a card game?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's called Saboteur. In fact, I need your address. I'm going to mail you this game Saboteur as a thank you.
Is it about like being an imposter basically?
Totally. 100%. That's like the whole shtick is you're supposed to be the saboteur and not let people know.
Yeah.
So that'll be my thank you gift to you.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing. I think that was super powerful. And, you know, I share this exercise because it really can be that simple, right? And, you know, everyone's mind is going to be like, okay, but how do I monetize that? And I get it, right? But but you don't have to monetize it immediately, right? You all have jobs. You can just see the role that you're in and how do you create that impact in the role that you're in, right? With the people around you, with the community that you serve, right? How do you bring that into what you're already doing? And sure, if you want to create a side hustle because your personal mission really can drive to that, absolutely, do that too. But I know where your practical minds are going. How do I make money? Okay, so let me leave you with a couple action steps before we log off here. So the first one is to talk about it. So that's why I'm so appreciative of you, Scott, for bringing me in and having this conversation, because when we keep this a secret and we keep this in the dark, we feel alone, right? And none of us want to feel alone. It is like the deepest, darkest human pain that we all go through, right? And to feel like we're in community and in community with people that feel the same way we do makes us feel like we belong, right? So talk to your teams about it, bring it up, make it a conversation. Guarantee you no one is ever going to be like, what? You're a loser, because they're all feeling it too. So don't ever be afraid to talk about it. The other is more of a tactical tool. So this was something that my first leader at Salesforce told me very early on, because she was like, shit's gonna get real and it's gonna get hard. So you need a file that you create of all the times that you got recognition or did something awesome or someone thanked you or, just all the stuff that reminds you that you are awesome and that you rock, and put it in a file. I had a little email folder for it, and go back to it anytime that you are being visited by your imposter syndrome to remind yourself that you have tons of evidence of success and that this stupid thought is not real and it's not true. And lastly is your inner cheerleader. So you talk to yourself more than you will ever talk to anyone on this entire planet for your whole life. You talk to you more than anyone. So make that voice a more pleasant one and not one that's wreaking havoc on you, right? So really try to cultivate your inner leader. And I'm not talking like bullshit, toxic positivity bullshit, right? Honestly, I gratitude journal every single morning, and I do an affirmation, which is kind of like your, something that you want to say to yourself, like a little mantra, right? Until this day, I literally still write, I am already enough, that is as simple as it needs to be, right? So make sure that the voice inside of you is working for you, not against you, and start to cultivate what that sounds like for you. Make it your own words, not just something you heard someone say once. And that's it. So the framework here is all about the awareness. So what are those thoughts getting in your way? Reflection, what's important to you that Scott so perfectly demonstrated, and then take action and start to carry out the mission and start really getting rid of those imposter thoughts. And I think, Scott, you've already been sharing this anyways, my website and my LinkedIn, and that's it.
Yeah.
Q&A time.
We got a lot of questions, so I'm gonna get to it. Eric, you were the first one. Eric Davidet.
Hey, Alli. Thank you. This was really awesome. I'm not. I think you kind of addressed this, so I'm gonna throw a little bit of an audible here. my question was really with regard to gender and how how you see this play out.
Yeah.
And I think, as you suggested, it's probably pretty universal, but it's maybe more, at least in my experience, I think more women are willing to admit that this happens.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I tend to be a sounding board for people in sales roles and stuff at my organization and kind of wherever I go. And I hear a lot of this. And so I guess my question is, as someone that I feel a lot of responsibility when people confide things like this in me, and I want to try and help. And, no matter the gender, are there some kind of go-to things that you would suggest that I recommend, or some things that might be helpful rather than me just like stabbing in the dark?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first and foremost, two things. Men tend to go into like, I need to solve this mode, right?
Yes.
And you said like, I want to help. And so I'll just offer you that it's not about helping potentially, and it's just about hearing them.
Yeah.
Just like hearing, like totally being like an active listener and actually just like really acknowledging what they're saying. And I can guarantee you that's probably going to solve a lot of it for them, just to feel heard and seen. And then the other one, oh my God, what was I just going to say? The other one was.
While you think about that,
Yeah.
instead of listening, I'll no, but that's actually funny that you say listening, because that's something that I've been practicing a lot over the last couple of years, and it seems to be really helpful. The one thing you said about clarity, getting clear on, really what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Like, what is important to you? Yeah. That resonated so huge for me. I just started a new role last month, and I feel completely unclear. Not through any fault of my employer, just new job stuff, and I can see how it just contributes to the weight feeling. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. The other thing I was going to say is also to potentially share how you feel, right, and make them feel like they're not alone in feeling it. So I think it's like two things, like they want to feel seen and heard, and they also don't want to feel alone, right? So potentially sharing a little bit about the ways that you feel it too, because they'll be like, oh my God, what? Like managers feel this too? Like they'll feel so relieved that it's not just like a them problem,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Cynthia, go to you.
Thanks, Scott. Hey, Alli, excellent presentation. Thank you for that. And you may have already answered my question, but I want to pose it anyway. How do you, when those negative voices and feelings pop up, how do you combat it? And specifically, when I assert myself and kind of share knowledge, in meetings and things like that, and I feel like it's right at night when I'm going to sleep, I'll think about it and I'll be like, you know what? I sounded like a giant bitch. I probably was too aggressive. And it's usually men that, I work with a lot of men, and I'm like, oh, they all probably hate me. I shouldn't speak up.
God, yeah.
What do you think?
That rumination after, oh God, what a freaking killer, eh? Well, so kind of like what I said when I was demonstrating my saboteur, that was like, you need to do more biz dev, more this, more that. And I was like, wait, hold on, says who, right? Like talk back to it, right? Like talk about like who's like says who or whatever it might be. But for yours too, it's like, I want to ask you, like, has there ever been a time where someone has given you the feedback that what you said in that presentation was ridiculous, like you're shit at speaking in front of people? Like, has anyone ever given you that feedback?
No, they haven't. Yeah.
Right. So like play back the evidence, right? That like literally never has this come true. This like thought. Right? And what it's only doing is robbing me of sleep, which will only make me feel worse tomorrow, which will only bring back these thoughts, right? Because when you're weaker and tired, right? Like it's easier to feel shitty because you just physically feel shitty. So then your thoughts turn shitty too, because you physically feel shitty. So try to use evidence, because I'm sure that there is none, So it's like, put them on trial, be like, says like, who? And what evidence do you have for that argument that you have, 'cause they
Awesome.
don't. Yeah,
Thanks, Alli. Appreciate that.
sure.
All right, Wayne, you're up.
Thanks, Scott. Alli, awesome presentation. Thank you for all of your work on this subject. I know everyone is racked with this, so this is such mission-driven work. So thank you for this commitment to this line of work. So I'm building my own company for the first time, and I'm going into new territory every single day.
Yeah.
That's how it feels, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I've lived life in startup world, so it's kind of felt like I've been going into new territory almost every day for multiple years.
Yeah.
And imposter syndrome hits me hardest when I hit the newest territory. It's like, oh, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
But this is like on me to figure this out, you know, and in my own company, it's just me to figure it out. And that's when I find it like really hits the hardest. I guess my take is like, that's just normal. I just have to roll with that situation. And I'm guessing, because it hits so frequently, I'm guessing like, I guess my question is like, how do you deal, how should I think about dealing with imposter syndrome when it hits on such a high frequency?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, you're right. It is so normal to feel out of your depth when you are in new waters, right? Like couldn't be a more normal feeling, right? Like if you walked into the deepest, darkest water and been like, this is totally safe. Like, you know, again, your brain is here for survival, right? So it's like trying to help. So it is super normal. I think all of this comes down to like, do you want to feel the way that you're feeling, or do you want to feel a different way? Right. And the question that popped up in my mind, because, you know, I'm like you, right? I'm in new waters every day, like something new, right? This is, you know, I've done Katie's Patreon group, but this was a little bit different, right? So this is new waters. And the question that came up when you were asking yours is like, well, like, what's the mission behind your business? Like, why are you doing what you do? And how do you keep that at the forefront versus constantly doing this and just focusing on the problems and the obstacles versus thinking about like the bigger picture of why this is actually meaningful, you know? Because this and the like, oh my God, I have to do this thing, I don't know how to do it, is like kind of disempowering and like a bit all consuming. But when we zoom out, you know, when we look at the fact that like 20 years from now, I'm never going to think about that day that I had to create some spreadsheet that I didn't know how to create. You're just going to think of like the totality of how amazing your business was, you know, like that zoom out is often really impactful to kind of see the forest through the trees.
Yeah, that's good. That's great advice. It's almost like when I run a lot. So if I was running and all I was doing was looking right in front of my feet, where my feet were about to land, I would trip over constantly. Right. Totally. But if I pick my head up and I look out into the distance, I can run freely and it's enjoyable.
And like you get new ideas, like you see things you never saw before, right? So it's also like problems are hard to solve when you're like this. It's often when you step back that you actually see you have a different relationship to the problem too, right?
So I think my takeaway is stop looking at your feet, pick your head up.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
I love.
Okay, thank you.
Analogies. Yeah, thanks, Wayne.
Hey, good, Wayne. I want to make sure you have enough airtime.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Scott. You did good this week.
This is a joke from last time, Alli, where Wayne was upset that I asked too many questions and he didn't get enough airtime. So
he still got his airtime.
Making sure we're simpatico, Wayne.
Yeah.
Okay, Randy.
Yes. So when you were sharing the 9 saboteur, one of the ones that jumped out to me was what I interpreted as being a bit of a procrastinator.
Yeah. The avoider?
What's that?
The avoider?
Yeah. And so I wanted to know if avoider procrastination, because I will say, and I don't know how everyone else is, but I've always worked well under pressure. And so sometimes I wait to the last, not last minute, but I seem to work better if I have more pressure. And I know for myself that adds a lot of stress and anxiety. But the more time I have, the more I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, oh. So I don't know if that's common. But that was one thing that I honed in on immediately.
Yeah, well, there's like I don't know, it's like some kind of law that like if you give someone a week, like if you give someone 24 hours to do something, they will do it in 24 hours. But if you give them a month to do it, it will take them a whole month to do it, even though it's the exact same task, right?
Right.
So that is like very human behavior for sure. And, you know, our saboteurs all like come from a place and come from a story that we made up about ourselves that we continuously make come true by continuously behaving the way that the story wants us to behave, right? So I would do some checking in on yourself of like, where's this story of like avoiding is the way to achievement, right? Because it doesn't make you fulfilled, it just achieves, right? So check in on where the story came from, but also like, what do you want to be? What do you want it to look like instead, right?
Right, because the story
the
story I've told myself is I work better under pressure, right?
Right.
But that's not healthy, right? So,
and you only reinforce the story by doing that over and over again.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But also very normal.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Kelly, you're up. Surf and Sales alumnus, Kelly went, by the way.
I'm going back. So with this one, it might not resonate as much with everybody here, but maybe it does. In my personal experiences, people that have been in my life have really kind of given me that imposter syndrome that has resonated over into my professional life, because I see those traits and trademarks in certain leaders that I've had. I've made a lot of personal growth, but I still find myself in that professional aspect of feeling less than, no matter what. So maybe just some pointers on how to translate my personal independence and growth that I've made into the professional part and professional side.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot here, lots that we can get into, but
Thank you, therapy. I
know, yeah, exactly.
Advocate for it.
Well, and I'll just, ever so kindly point you to a bit of the victim words that you used, right? People made me feel like the imposter, right? No one can make you really feel like anything.
I'm George Costanza.
I mean, who doesn't love George?
On the other side, I definitely resonate with the controller.
Right. Yeah. So the thing that I would say, Lori's freaking out. So the victim popped out, and the other thing I know to be 100% true now, I felt like I knew this before, but now working with so many people, I know it to be true, is that our careers are really no different than our personal and our personal life and our relationships. And so you will recreate your childhood wounds in your career over and over again, because it hasn't been actually processed and healed. And so although you maybe healed it, in your personal life, you're still trying to recreate it because it's what you know, right? Like we're sabotagers. It's what we know. And so it's what we know to create those relationships and want to be in those relationships because that's what we understand, right? It's scary to be in different ones because you're out of depths, right? You never had that kind of relationship. So I guess that's what I would offer you to think about, is that you might be recreating in your career.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Lori, close it. Bring us on home. Close it out.
Bringing it home. Hey.
Bring it home.
Hey, Alli, question for you. You mentioned that you're able to train brains. And you said it.
Yeah. Recorded.
So curious about coaching salespeople with sports backgrounds. A lot of folks in sales have the sports background, specifically those who have traumatic brain injuries from that. How do you coach them out of imposter syndrome when their brains are already overcoming so much simply to do daily tasks?
Yeah. So I had a rep that played rugby, had lots of concussions. And I remember him talking about how he had to retrain his brain literally to just get back to normal. And like he had a whole spreadsheet and like really took it seriously and was like super, super diligent about it. I think the biggest thing is writing, like getting it out of your brain and getting it in front of you and out of your, like the spiraling thoughts, and seeing it on paper and being able to read it back and really being, you can recognize it and process it differently once you've written it versus when it's just spiraling and spiraling in your own mind. So, you know, maybe it's kind of some daily journaling, maybe even some gratitude journaling, right? To really get it out of, because what happens is like the saboteurs just gang up on you. You know, it's just like this battle in your own mind of this gang against you, right? And when you start putting them out on paper, you're taking them out of your brain. So the gang is getting less and less strong, you know? So that's, I would give you that as a piece of advice. Have you ever tried journaling with them or like given that as some, you know, takeaways for them?
Sure. Yeah. And that, you know, people who have, I don't want to say mental fortitude as if there's a strength associated with one and not the other, but I mean, there's that driving hunger that can sometimes propel some forward, where even if they're not as comfortable writing, they can do that, maybe more comfortable talking. But there are some who it's hard stuff. And when you're kind of defeated in that and then trying to overcome this other very normal, natural thing, right? I just saw everybody drink.
Yeah.
Drinking game. It's a very normal, natural thing. And then you're adding these really difficult things to overcome on top of that.
Yeah.
And it's just it's natural to feel like, wow, that's even further away from me.
Yeah. Well, I would also say that you don't need to be their leader, their coach, their therapist, and their occupational therapist. You know,
you don't have to be all the things to all the people.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know what that looks like right now. So
I know.
Coaching for that.
I can sense that you want to be all those things to them, right?
Yeah.
People, you mentioned that yourself.
Yeah. So I would, my best advice actually is to like get them to get help, you know, like use their personal development budget for a coach or a therapist or whatever it might be, like advocate for them to get that, because you can't take on all of it. You just can't. And they need to hear it from a different perspective too. It's like a little bit different when it comes from your manager who's like, your job depends on that person, you know, that person can fire you type of thing. Like they need that outside source too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. This has been fantastic. I appreciate everybody sticking with us a little over our time, especially you, Alli.
Yes, thank you.
Spending so much time with us and imparting your wisdom.
Cool.
I have 9,000 questions I will save for later because I'm a note taker and a question asker, Wayne. It's who I am. This will now be the running joke for the rest of the year, by the way.
I'm glad I'm a part of it.
Yeah, you are definitely a part of it now. Leave us with some parting thoughts, Alli. I told everybody about your workshop on March 2nd.
Yeah.
I dropped your website in there. I told everybody to connect with you on LinkedIn if they haven't done so already. Parting shot.
Man, parting shot. Wow. I really gave you all the goods. Well, I think that, okay, I'll leave you with this because I actually didn't bring it up. So something I've learned through all the people that I've coached and, you know, my own experience and whatnot, it really actually became clear for me in Costa Rica. So I was in Costa Rica actually when Scott was, unfortunately we didn't get to see each other, but I had an amazing experience in Costa Rica. And what really became clear for me is that I think there are actually two universal core values. So I leave you with this to maybe help you on that search. And the two core values that I think we all have are growth and community. Because when you bring it back to like hunter-gatherer, like Neanderthal days, if it was all about survival, right? If you were not a part of the tribe, if you were exiled from the tribe, you would die, right? And if your tribe did not evolve and get stronger, you would all die, right? And so when you are feeling a lack of growth in your life, you feel stuck. And when you're feeling a lack of community, you feel alone. right? And I think those are kind of the two biggest pains that we all feel, right? So I leave you with that because I think that universally we all value growth and community, and I think that we just express it and use different language around it in our everyday lives. But I just know that like when we combine growth and when we combine community, which is why this little thing that you have here works so freaking well, is that your success is limitless when you can put the two together. And a lot of people will sacrifice community in order to grow, right? Like revenue at all costs, or like whatever, like just get the numbers and like fuck, not like fuck the people, but like not think about how you're building a culture or whatever.
Or actually, that is what they think. Yeah.
Right. But when you have both, those are the moments that like you live for, that you'll think about on your deathbed.
The magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my parting words.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alli. Appreciate
Thank
you
you
being
guys.
here on
So nice to
Tequila
meet everyone.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thanks, Endoso, for sponsoring us. Thank all of you for being here. Thank everybody who dropped some questions. And check out Alli's website. Check out her workshop on March 2nd. Connect with her. Follow her on LinkedIn if you haven't done so already. And I will see you all next time.
Nice to meet you guys.